Let me share with you some of their answers. What kind of a little boy was your dad? I don't know because I wasn't there. But my guess would be pretty bossy. They said he used to be nice. What did Mom need to know about Dad before she married him? His last name. She had to know his background. Like, was he a crook? Does he make at least $800 a year? Did he say no to drugs and yes to chores? Why did your mom marry your dad? She got too old to do anything else with him. Who's the boss at your house? Mom doesn't want to be the boss, but she has to because Dad's such a goofball. And what's the smartest thing your dad ever said? Don't eat the yellow snow. We're in a series now of messages on sacred service. For me, the absolute most sacred service I've ever done in my life is that of serving my children. Let me introduce them to you. Here, this picture is about 9 years ago when some of them were still actually kids. Brett now is 37 and he works for the post office in customer service in Utah. Scott's 35. He lives with his wife, Wang, in Alaska. Julie is 32. She is a stay-at-home mother. Her husband is a chiropractor, and they live in Colorado. Emily is 28 and is studying, and she lives in Clemens, just outside of Winston-Salem. Matt's 25. He lives in Utah. He's studying for his PhD in psychology. And Jenny in Idaho, studying in her junior year, is my baby. She turned 20 on Thursday. I can't believe that's 6 kids. And I also have 5 granddaughters. Here are 3 of them. And then my first grandson was born this past Tuesday.
Wow!
Would you like to hear what my children said about me from similar services? I thought you would. In his spare time, Dad likes to sit down and sleep. I love it when my dad does something useful and plays and takes us on vacations. A great memory I made with my dad is when, unknown for now, who was President of the United States when Dad was born? Eisenhower and George Washington. What was your dad's nickname when he was a kid? Da Bomb. What makes your dad happy? Love, hugs, and kisses. Is that right?
Yes.
I love my dad because he loves me. Because he's my father. Today I want to take you on a journey from my early childhood and what I learned about fathers, through a transitional journey with changes in my view of the world, my view of fathers, my view of men, and then onto a journey seeing what our way-shower Jesus taught about fathers. Because he's my father. How much more can we say? That's what I can say now. Let's think. Because he's my father. What does that mean? Does it mean that I'm to honor him no matter what, just because he's my father? That sure used to bring up a whole lot of things for me. It really didn't feel good at all. Like anger, repression, rebellion, confusion, doubt, fear, and guilt. Can any of you relate? Let me take you back to first grade. It was a day like any other day, but it would turn out to be different than any other I've really had thus far. I was getting ready to go to school, and just before I left, I realized that I didn't have enough money for lunch. Now, I didn't work for a living back then, so I'd either go without lunch or have to ask my dad. Now that brought up a lot of frightening feelings. I honestly don't remember how I ended up with the money, but my dad gave me a $5 bill. Lunch only cost 35 cents back then, and 2 cents for what we called sweet milk, or 3 cents for chocolate milk. It seemed like even though he was volunteering to give me the money, that I had to pry it from his hands. I just had to rip it away. He told me not once, not twice, but several times to make sure that I brought him back the change. I will, Daddy. I promise. I put the money in my pocket and headed off to school. That day I bought my lunch with a $5 bill. And instead of risking losing it by keeping it in my pocket, I decided to put it in my desk drawer. Now, you remember back then we had those desk drawers that flipped, those desks that had tops that flipped up. Well, I put it in a box inside that. I knew the money was going to be safe there. You could really almost trust anyone back then, because remember, it was the day a father knows best and leave it to Beaver. After I returned home that day, Dad returned from work just in time for supper. He came into the house, put his hat on the hat rack, and you know what the first thing he did was. Yes, he asked me for the change to the $5 bill. Oh no. I left the change on my desk at school. I went white as a sheet and just trembled with fear. You did what? I trusted you. You know how hard I've worked for that money. I can't believe it. You lost it, didn't you? No, Daddy, it's in my desk at school. I'll bring it to you tomorrow. You didn't put it in your desk at school, did you? You're lying to me. You lost it. You lost that money. Well, I don't really have to tell you too much more, do I? This was the 50s when his dads ruled the roost. You never, ever questioned them. Dad went for his belt, and you know the rest. That day, little Ricky, little 5-year-old Ricky, learned what a father was. Can any of you relate to this?
Yep.
Really hope not, but I hear a lot of yeses. Some of us don't have much wonderful memories of Father. I hope that we can take the opportunity today to do a lot of healing. So what do you think young 5-year-old Ricky learned about how a father is supposed to be? About being a man. From this experience and many more growing up, from this culture, from his church, from his teachers, here's a few of the things I learned. Don't question authority. Dad is always right. Never, ever, ever show weakness. Keep a stiff upper lip. Heaven forbid, don't show emotion. Do not ever make a mistake. As a matter of fact, you better be perfect. Have all the answers. And if you don't, you better make one up. Money's scarce. You better watch every cent. You have to work hard for everything. It's a cruel world out there. You better watch out for yourself. You have to fight for everything you get. Children should be seen and not heard. We have to earn our daddy's respect. And if I can't find His love here, I'll have to find it somewhere else. Do any of these sound familiar? What do you think this view of fathers, of men, does to us? For me, many of those became my rules. Thou shalt have all the answers. Thou shalt not question authority. Thou shalt not show feelings. They shaped my life. It became one of rigidity and compliance. Or if it wasn't rigid or compliant, I felt guilty for not being that way. For most of my life, I attended the Mormon church. My children still do, and I bless them, I honor them, and I support them in it. I personally did the whole Mormon thing. I went to church every Sunday. I went on a Mormon mission to Argentina for 2 years. I returned and went to Brigham Young University and married in a Mormon temple. I worked 60 to 70 hours a week, then worked another 20 to 30 hours a week in my church. It seemed that family came last. Yet, went to soccer games, cheerleading events, scout work banquets, camping trips, school activities, and on and on and on. I was trying to do the best I could, but I just never seemed to measure up to the rules. Then, about 13 years ago, my life came crashing down. My body, my mind, my spirit could not go on any longer. I had a nervous breakdown and ended up in a 28-day treatment program for depression. Now, I came out of the program renewed and reinvigorated, so I thought. I actually continued in a downward spiral. I separated from my wife of nearly 30 years. I left my job and I lived with my parents. While there, I stayed in a small bedroom and rarely came out of it. There was a 3-month period when I remember never even seeing my parents except for one time running across my mother in the middle of the night. I didn't see my father at all during that 3 months, and my bedroom was right across from theirs. I'd leave during the middle of the night on weekends to go visit my children. Sometimes when I visited my children, I could do no more than say hello and go back to bed and sleep. I'd come back to my parents when they were sleeping, and I'd come back in the middle of the night. I had lost it all. It was the end of my world. Or was it? A couple of weeks ago, I was taking my morning walk. I came across 3 small children, maybe 3 to 5 years old. The youngest saw me coming and just ran up to me, opened her arms with a huge smile on her face. She jumped into my arms. She just jumped into my arms. I hugged her. I brought her close to me and didn't want to let her go. I'd never seen her in my entire life. And the other 2 said, "He's a stranger." But I had a feeling that was just incredible. I realized at that moment that I was experiencing the grace of God. Now, I walked on and I saw Mommy Goose and several little baby geese following her. What a sight that was. I experienced the grace of God again. I could see it in the flowers. I could see it in the sky. I could feel it in the air, in the trees, even in the pavement. I was experiencing it in everything. I realized at that moment that grace is something that's in every single moment of our lives. In every moment, everywhere. There's not a place where it's not. It's not given to you. It's not earned for sure. It's already there. We only need to open our eyes, recognize it, and allow it into our lives. grace is allowed. Grace is experienced. Now, what in the world does this have to do with Father's Day talk? Well, looking back, I can see that it was through grace, through allowing, not stopping the divine flow of spirit, that my life changed. No more of the darkness. I began seeing things very differently. All the old rules were becoming obsolete. I began seeing God differently. I began experiencing God. One of the first healing experiences that I remember was to experience my father in a very different light. Memories just flooded into me. He was always at my sporting events. He breaks into song whenever even one word reminds him of the song. His laugh is absolutely contagious. He's adored by those who know him. He took us on the most wonderful vacations all over the country. He played baseball with us in my grandmother's yard until there was no grass left. Just see the base paths. He's the most honest man I have ever known. He adored his wife, my mother. His love, respect, and care is matched by no man. He loves me. He cherishes me. I cherish him. We are now best friends. My perception of fatherhood, of being a man, was really changing. It became a time of relearning. I was seeing that real fatherhood is balancing of the wonderful divine masculine qualities of protection, courage, healthy assertion, focused will, structure, strength, balance, and perseverance, with the divine feminine qualities of unconditional love, compassion, wisdom, beauty, gentleness, patience, acceptance, forgiveness, nurturance, intuition, and healing. Where I previously felt like such a failure as a father, I now began re-experiencing the choice memories with my children. I thought about the time that my kids and I used to put records on and dance with abandon. I recall taking my 6-year-old daughter, Julie, on a daddy-daughter date to Daryl's. She dressed in her Sunday best dress, I in a suit and tie, and we just sat looking at each other, smiling ear to ear. I thought about the many stories I'd read to my children over the years, like traditional Bible stories, to Disney classics, to ghost stories, and even stories we'd written ourselves. My little Emily. Every night for about 2 years, we created our own stories. Most of them were ghost stories. Sometimes stories of faraway lands, or just funny adventures that we shared together. Stories that we created in the moment. I reflected on the many nights after reading and talking how we would fold our arms and pray to the one that we knew loved us unconditionally. Just my child and me. And they weren't the now I lay me down to sleep prayers. I remember one time when Jenny, who was 5 at the time, was praying, thanking God for this and that. Then out of nowhere, right in the middle of the prayer came, and we thank you for the Gizmo Hall of Fame. The Gizmo Hall of Fame, where did that come from? We laughed and laughed till we just cried. And even to this day, we talk about that. All we have to do is say Gizmo. Then there was a time I was sitting in a church leadership meeting where I had knocked the office door. A police officer stuck his head in the door and asked for Rick Hiatt. Man, was I ever shocked. What in the world had I done? I came out into the hall and he told me that my son Scott, who was 10 or 11 at the time, had set fire to a neighbor's spider plants and some anthills. So as a family, we had to have a fireman come over for a few weeks and teach us about fire safety. Was that ever a trip? call me when he's excited about a trip he took, a basketball game he went to, a tough day at work, relationship issues and challenges, deep heart pains, and deep heart joys. I don't think he knows how he serves my soul. And my youngest son, Matt, I remember the night that he called and told me that he was in so much pain. He was away at school in Utah where almost everyone was of his faith. The boys he knew would talk of their experiences with their dads. He felt that he had missed out on so much in his life since I'd separated from his mother and left the home. Total honesty, total openness. What healing this began to create for us. Then just a few weeks ago, he called to let me know that he's getting married. In less than 2 months, the whole family will reunite, the whole family, since the time of that picture 9 years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
This entry in my journal is an illustration of the best part of being a father. This is what I said several years ago. Christmas was wonderful this year. We cut back on the gift giving and other activities. This helped us to focus on important things. 2 things I remember most. First, putting Christ back in Christmas. Second, on Christmas Eve, we gathered around the fireplace and shared feelings and memories. I was really touched and felt that I needed to share some personal thoughts. I explained that I had felt God's love ever since I was a young boy going to Bible school, but that this year God's love was becoming very personal. I also explained how Spirit had recently told me several things in my heart. One was that we knew each other before this life and made some promises to each other that we would come to earth to live together and we'd be there for each other. We'd help one another, we would love each other, and each one of us would help the others to find love and joy. I felt Spirit so strongly. I became so emotional that I couldn't continue. I simply wept. The kids were very quiet this whole time. No acting up, no being the least bit irreverent. They felt the love and Spirit that was with us. They each came to me and hugged me. Julie wiped away my tears. Emily said, "You aren't sad, you feel the Holy Spirit." Brett was also crying. It was a moment I'll cherish forever. That was a time when the whole family shared not only vocally and emotionally, but spiritually, all the way to the depths of our souls. I then knew what Christmas was all about and felt deeply of God's love for all of us. So how did I relive my experience as a father? How do I see a father being now? Well, he spends time with his children. The gift of presence. He listens. He plays and laughs and has fun. Can you imagine? He becomes as a child. He's totally accepting no matter what. He's authentic. He gently guides. He empowers. He allows himself to be vulnerable. He seeks opportunity to serve and cherishes all those opportunities. He balances the wonderful, divine, masculine, and feminine qualities. He loves. He loves. He loves completely, unconditionally, and with lots and lots of hugs and kisses. I'd like to spend the last few minutes sharing Jesus' thoughts about what Father means. He went to great lengths to calling God Father. It had to do with relationship, it had to do with family, it had to do with closeness, familiarity, intimacy, and all the qualities of love, forgiveness, strength, and oneness. The best conceivable Father you could ever imagine. Always there, always supporting, always upholding, always strengthening, always loving. There isn't anything you could do, no matter how bad you mess it deny you the love of God. That would deny God for being there for you. Jesus used the word Father in so many ways. He uses divine love, divine energy, divine principle. Let me just give you a few things from Scripture as a reminder of what he said about Father and what principles come to my heart. Think about what principles come to yours. He said, "It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." And what is the kingdom? The Christ consciousness within us, the realm of divine idea producing divine order. He said, "All things have been delivered to me by my Father," embracing the allness of life. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgiveness and foremost self-forgiveness. He said, "Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit." Total surrender. And what do we know about surrender? We're not giving up when we're surrendering. We're giving in. We're releasing all fear, all doubt, all worry, all everything, and stepping into divine flow. He said, the Father judges no one. Acceptance, total and complete acceptance, no matter what. God doesn't judge you. God by nature is not even capable of judging. We judge ourselves. God is pure love. Love could never judge. He said, "I've come in my Father's name," meaning I'm come in my Father's nature. I reflect the very nature and character of God. Unity, second principle. I and the Father are one. He who has seen me has seen the Father. I am in the Father and the Father in me. Oneness. We're inseparable. And lastly, the words that I say to you, I do not speak of my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me and does the works. What intention, what spiritual connection, what power. Thank you for joining me today on my journey. It's a journey from what I learned as a father in my early years to a transformative journey, realizing that Father's not a person. He's not a gender. It's divine energy, divine principle, divinity itself, inside us, around us, and everywhere. And then a journey to what our ways show, what Jesus taught about Father. This has been a very, very healing journey for me. What a joy it is to be part of this congregation where I, as a man, feel safe to express all the qualities of a true father. Qualities like focus, protection, structure, and strength, along with unconditional love, compassion, gentleness, and acceptance. So now, when I'm asked why I love my Father, I simply say, because He's my Father. Happy Father's Day.